Alright, so I decided instead of doing a grey box and just demonstrating some of the lighting techniques that I would use, I would actually jump into Prison itself and show you how I would use the techniques in this map specifically. I've had a very quick float around and seen just the sheer amount of light entities you're using, and I can tell you that most of them aren't necessary for a good looking map. I'm not sure if anyone's told you how performance works on lights, but you have ambient lights, which are the lowest performing because they don't cast shadows, they don't have specular, and the gradient on them is the least noticeable. It basically comes across as if you're just painting a wall for a flat colour. They are the equivalent of 1/10 of a spotlight. A spotlight obviously is a conal light in one direction that you can have specular and shadows. So it's the equivalent of using 10 ambient lights to have that one light, and it only works in one direction. A point light is literally made up of 6 spotlights. That's all it is. The engine actually just points a spotlight in every direction, and that's how the point light works. It's not very efficient at all. So the amount of point lights you've got, each of these point lights is the equivalent of 6 spotlights. Every single one of them. So that's really like overkill, especially for things like this. Like this, you could, and I'm noticing, this is the first time I've clicked on anything, but all of your point lights and spotlights, by the look of it, are all going to be set to 5. Yeah. Okay, so you're not increasing the intensity. You are lowering the intensity sometimes, but you're not increasing the intensity at all. Okay. So that was something I suspected. This here, this can be done with a spotlight and only a spotlight. You don't need to do that. This is the equivalent of the performance cost of 6 spotlights, and you will get a better result if you just use a single spotlight. And this is how. I might go quiet during some of this because I'll actually be doing the work rather than concentrating on how to tell you. But all you do is you get rid of shadows. You can keep specular if you want, that's fine. Gauge, or gauge should I say, how far away from the light you want this to be, because the light does shine in both directions. So I would increase the radius probably to about 65 to give more of a natural look to it. What colour is this? Do you have it set? You do, good. So if we do that, get rid of this spotlight, increase the intensity to 20. Bring it up and back. And that would be how I personally do it. Maybe pull it further away as well. And increase the intensity a little bit more. And it may not look like much. In fact, with this light, because the light's going in both directions, I'd probably be willing to flip it as well. So I might not use 2. And the reason I'd flip it is because if you look at the light itself, it's got the bars on both sides. Give me that one. So it wouldn't cast shadows to the sides. Oh, sorry, it would cast shadows to the sides. And we can see that this isn't going wide enough now. So let's bring that up to 75. And that light looks like it's shining the way it would in real life to me now. And because you're only using 2 spotlights and point lights are made up of 6 spotlights, you just cut the performance cost of this down by 1/3. To me that looks much better, but just to give you a comparison, I will Control Z the fuck out of it. You have that versus this. Now I don't know which one you prefer, but yeah, I personally prefer the version that I did. I do mention these in the video. I'll show you how I would do these quickly, or as quickly as I can at least. So I'm actually going to only do one of them, so that you can just see immediately what the comparison would be. I hate ambient lights. I really wish you could just hit the global one and apply it in all directions, but yeah, they don't like that way. Right, just so you're also aware, the intensity of the way ambient lights works is confusion for a lot of people as well. So if you have 1 on a point light, that's 10 on an ambient light. So you can see here that this point light is at 5. This is at 50, and it's still barely matching the intensity of the other light. So you really need to pump these up if you're wanting to make them look like point lights. I'd put this at about 150 to try and match your colour and brightness. And it seems to be doing a relatively decent job. Only this will cover all of it rather than just a small portion. I don't personally think this is how I would light it, but I think this is how it would match your lighting as it is now. But if you do this, grab a spotlight, point the spotlight up, you can essentially do what me and Meth discussed, which is don't bring it up to the ceiling, but definitely bring it up a bit. Add atmospheric density, so I'd probably put about 0.1 because we're going to kick the intensity up to about 32. I'm going to make it orange, and for some reason my thing is not showing them. It's not displaying post-processing properly. That's weird. Oh, it is, it's just I'm putting it way too low. Fair enough. Alright, so drop that back down to 32. I think I mentioned this in the video, that if you scale the outer ring of your light too much, it distorts shadows. It does the same for atmospherics and makes it look kind of bad. But here you can see the light streaks coming out of the bars, in the pattern of the bars, That's essentially what Meth was saying. I wouldn't do that. I would honestly probably hurt performance quite a bit, but I would do this or something like this. See, I would do something like that. I would also adjust the shadow fade so that as you get further away, those shadows still look like they belong. You don't want to do it too far away because that's probably about right. 0.1, maybe a little bit lower. 0.08. There you go. So when you're right up against this wall, you can still see an element of shadow there. But I don't want to focus too much on this little bit. There's a few areas I wanted to go over. I'm just going to have to try and remember where they are. Okay, so I mentioned these textures and these props that you're point lighting. I knew you were point lighting these. This I don't like at all. I think this looks kind of bad in game. It draws the eye too much because you can see the point that the lights are coming from, and you're also not covering the whole thing. I wouldn't try to cover the whole thing because it looks bad. But for what you're trying to do here, I would turn specular off and then increase the max distance of 55 on each of them, maybe a little bit bigger, 75, so that you've got flat coverage over the lights. Now it sucks because once you take away that specular light, it stops the floor looking shiny, but if you brought it back, you'd notice that the issue is intensified because you've increased the range. So to counter that, if you're really wanting to have lights on these, what I would do is I would take maybe every other one of these. I know this is a performance nightmare, this is one of the reasons I said not to do it. I would bring them way up in the air, I would increase their radius to about 150 and then add specular. Now, I still don't like this, just so you're aware. I do not like this technique at all. It's performance heavy and it makes the area look wrong. It makes it look flat and boring. I would rather just see the in-game emission and bloom do its job. While they're doing its job, these should be touching the ground or going through it in this case. But I've got one of these. Oh, you have increased the intensity on these, but not by much. I'd probably put these at about 350. I think that's going to be about right. 350, yeah, that'll do. Intensity 32. Now, I'm hoping that you can see the benefit in this already, like really, really whacking up the intensity of lights, because it draws the eye, it does exactly what you need it to do, and what you've currently got, this level 5, this is really dark. Like in game, it's surprisingly dark, and just because it's it's equally dark everywhere, there's no depth to the lighting, and every time I give feedback like this, I always feel like I'm being a dick, and it's not the intention. It's just, yeah, you just use intensity a lot more, like really push, like exaggerate it. And people will respond to it more positively, and it's generally a better experience anyway. You've got the perfect level of darkness, like the darker areas in your map are the perfect level of dark. So now you just need to bring other lighting up to the forefront to contrast that. So this is something I said about in the video, probably one about 85 actually. These lights that you've done here, I'll leave that one as it is so you can do a contrast, or comparison should I say. I'm guessing it's this blue. Is it? No. Nope. 64. Right. So we've got the angle. The angle is 85 degrees. You want to turn shadows off. Ideally, you want to be turning specular off as well, because you don't need spec for this. And then you want to up the intensity. Now, it's not inside the room enough, and you can tell. Make that higher. Something feels wrong here. Why isn't that lighting up? What the hell? There we go. It was the R angle, not the J. Trust the arrogant prick to think it's not his lighting. Okay, so with a single spotlight, you can make it look like the light is shining down, and you've got that gradient coming down the wall, compared to that, where you can see that you've got the centre part of the light right next to the wall. That's just an issue with using point lights instead. Obviously, I'm also using a higher intensity than you for this, but it's just the way I'm used to lighting. If you light with really high intensity lights, people seem to respond really well to that lighting. But yeah, I'd get rid of these as well. Grab these spotlights. Have you got a second one up here? Yep, I'm going to grab these ones as well, because I didn't do these a minute ago. They were at 350 and at 32. Just going to get rid of edges. Oh yeah, I said in the video that doing point lights as bloom lights, these artificial bloom lights, are completely unnecessary. They are. I get why some people do them, but to me they are just performance eaters. They don't do much, and if someone's got bloom on, and when they get close to it, it becomes blinding, because generally these bloom lights are much higher intensity than these. But what I do instead is for every 2 that you would normally place, centralize 1, bring it right down, increase the radius to encompass both lights, and then reduce the intensity. You're using quite low intensity lights anyway, but because I'm used to using really high intensity lights, these ones are too far apart to do this. But yeah, because I'm using high intensity lights normally, anytime I did bloom lights, they were at like 80 intensity, so I would move the light way away and then reduce it down to like 12, because when I first did Unearthed, you can still see remnants of it on Unearthed. I'll have a light up against the prop, another light lower down, and then another light even lower down, and they were just getting, the radius of them was small, medium, and then large, and intense, less intense, and almost dull, like a 4 or something towards the bottom, and it created a gradient that looked fantastic, but performance is a thing that you need to worry about. So I ended up having to remove most of those and came up with a compromise that looks almost as good if you have bloom on. These ones I would probably bring down. Again, increase the radius and reduce the intensity. So 120 and 3. And what this does is it means that when a player gets close, it still gets brighter, but not as bright. So it still feels like you're getting hit by intense lights. And it also increases the range that you're going to be getting the specular hit. So these pipes are now shining because of the light that's hitting them. And that seems like something that these lights would do. It would make these pipes shine. So it's noticeable. These are not lined up very well, but get rid of those 3. Actually, get rid of those 4. I'll just copy and paste this one. Duplicate. Well, obviously I can't hear what your feedback on any of my changes are, which is a shame. I would like to have done this as a voice call and done in real time with you. I did that with Meth recently, and he said that it actually really opened his eyes to a lot of the mistakes he was making, and he feels like his lighting has improved quite a lot since. I don't know how much worth there is in that. I don't personally think that I'm amazing at lighting by any means, but other people seem to think so. So I try and give advice where I can. I still kind of feel like a fraud doing it. These can get deleted because they look wrong. I'm just going to do this room because this room is like, well, you can see how many light entities you've used in this very, very small room, and then there's so many out here. This is insanity. Obviously I can't see what these props are, so I don't know what you're lighting up because I can't remember offhand. I've got a terrible memory. But in this small room, I'll just ignore the outside for a second. In this small room, you've got, just for these stripes, you have, where does it say how many entities I've got selected? 9 point lights. That's the equivalent of like 57 spotlights. 9 times 6? No, 54 spotlights, sorry. And then you've also got these ones in the middle, which you've got 3 rows of 3, sorry, and then 2 rows of 2. So yeah, there's a lot of lighting going on in this room, and it doesn't look like there's that many lights when you're in game. When you walk in, this does not look bright. So I'm going to do a before and after for this, actually. So I'm going to take a screenshot of how this looks. I'm going to post this in a private Discord channel that I use. This is an animation thing I'm doing for university. It can be ignored. I've just taken a screenshot of this, and now I'm going to completely overhaul the lights in here. I'm going to do it relatively quickly. I'm going to try and stick to the same coloured lights that you're using, and I'm just going to use the same techniques I used a second ago. I'm not going to do it like that. I'll do this instead. So something I've noticed that you're not doing, which I think you could do a lot more, is using your skyboxes to create a light. Now you've got these two things here that have lights pointed directly at the room. Now I was about to do this with a light entity, but actually I think we should try cinematic, because there's a cinematic specifically for them, and I can't remember where it is, so it might take me a little bit of time to find. There isn't a mine shaft section, so it'll be in here, maybe. Nope. It's going to be an environment, isn't it? God damn it. It's not an emergency light. Roadblock, there we go. Light roadblock. Now, which way is it going? It's going that way. So we need to rotate this 90 degrees. And then bring it down to the point where they line up. They're not bright or intense enough. Never mind. I will use spotlights instead. Now this is pretty much the only time where I would advise using a bloom light of some kind on these roadblocks, because of the size of them, and the fact that the emissive layer is, well, missing. It's always on. So I'm going to use the orange light that you've provided, because that pretty much matches, and then I'm going to drag it in. Oh, where the hell am I? There we go. Oh yeah. When you're doing this, there's a thing called light block geo, which essentially the way Spark does its light blocking is through backface culling. So it will cull light through the backface of geometry. What you want to do is just recreate this geo, but a little bit back. And then the shadows won't look weird and dodgy around here, around the edges. It will still only look like it's coming through the window. A single layer, when you start stretching the distance of the light noticeably, it becomes kind of awful. So essentially, if you're not adding that shadow, that light block, when the light goes through, it will hit this one layer, but it will still shine on these corners through. You'll see it on some maps, especially the further the range of your light is, you'll start seeing jagged corners of light coming through, because the range of the light distorts the shadow just as much as the radius of the inner and outer radiuses, or angles should I say. So I would do something like this to add that element of light to this area. It's not working like it should though, in the editor at least. I think it's probably because I've done that. Yeah, it was. that was distorting the shadows, so it looked a bit weird. I would probably rotate one of these a little bit. Who's got atmospheric they have? Okay, that's why. Yeah, raised. Okay, so now let's bang that up to 480. It's probably too much. This is awkward to do because I'm trying to do it with roadblocks instead of just skylight light. Like if I was doing it in the marine start here, I can have like an angled light over here somewhere. Oh, where the fuck am I? Okay, over here somewhere. Oh, I'm out of props. And the light hitting this window would come through at this angle that you've already got, just in a more intense way. What's this? What's causing that angle? Oh, it is this one. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd probably like more than double that just to make it stand out. I get that like the area that this is in is supposed to be relatively dark and drab, but I can't emphasize enough that like playing with shadows like this makes areas look better. Sometimes it takes quite a lot of tinkering and such. Like I'm trying to get this one right over here. I think you can see what I'm trying to do, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do it properly because like the back face culling isn't working properly, and I'm not entirely sure why. Well, that's probably one reason right there. Shouldn't be casting on that. Wait, are these casting shadows? They're not. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm so stupid. I did wonder why this didn't look right. Well, that's back pretty much how it was, because I thought it wasn't working properly, but it turns out it is. And I would make these 0.1. That should be enough for this room. Can probably get rid of specular and then increase the intensity. And you're starting to see the shadows on the walls in this place from the windows. Why is there a big square missing here? I'm going to leave it pretty much like that, but I will take the screenshot again, just so you can see what it was that I did. Oh wait, quickly demonstrate how I would do bloom lights on these. So I know I said not to do bloom lights, but like I said, the emissive on this doesn't bloom because it's supposed to be dirty and drab. Use the same colour. Could probably do that with a spotlight instead. Like just have the radius hitting just towards the back here and target it. I'm not going to do that now because it takes a little bit of time, and I want to get as much into this video as possible, and you're probably already bored. But yeah, screenshot. So now if I bring up the screenshot that you had, that was the lighting that you did, and then this is my overall revamp. I'm gonna see if there's anything else in the level that I wanted to point out. I did say in the video that you don't need power node lights or RT lights or tech point lights. They all provide their own light in game, and all it does essentially is it means when the power node isn't lit or isn't built, or if the resource tower or the tech point doesn't have an object there, it's lit up, and it doesn't make sense that it's lit up because there's nothing there to light it up. I think there was something in here that I wanted to do using these these shadow casts here. So I'm not going to do much in this room. I'm not going to like completely redo the lighting or anything like that. I just want to quickly show that you've got the potential here for a much better lighting situation. Give me a second on the phone. Hello? This is better than that. Yeah. Hold on. Alright, bye. Right, you probably had every part of that phone call. That's fine. So what I do is, okay, it's going to be a lot further than that. You're looking at about 450. Touching the ground. Not quite, 460. Okay, so that is. I would massively reduce the atmospheric density because we're about to really increase the intensity. So atmospheric density I would bring down to 0.02. And then I would increase this to about 48 and 10 shadows on. 48 is probably too high. Yeah, let's reduce it down to 35 and then increase the distance to 480 just to clarify the shadows. And before. And after. Now the shadows actually break up the floor, which is quite nice. Because Meth pointed out in the video that the texture is quite stretched. But doing that just makes it look less low quality because of stretching. Again, these lights, you want them touching the floor, if not going through the floor, and not with the tip. You want the outer ring touching the floor. So you want to be bringing this to about 300. 310. 320 again. So now that they're touching the floor, I don't know why these are so low intensity, but let's bring that up to 12 for now. Okay, let's reduce the atmospheric density even more. And you're already starting to see that the light you've got is perfect for the shadows, like for the darker areas of the map. Anywhere you want to be dark, the lighting you've got is already perfect for that. These I would not use point lights for at all. I would spotlight the hell out of that. And with the spotlights you can keep the specular on. In fact, I'm just going to quickly... It'll look weird to start with, because, yeah, whatever. So, you don't need shadows on these. I'm pretty sure the shadows are already turned off. Yep, they are good. You don't need anywhere near that distance. 180 will probably be fine for now. We're going to increase the outer circle to 65. That was a nice guess. Maybe bring it down a tiny bit. Yeah. And change the colour to the bluish colour that you had. I'm using this blue for now just because that's vaguely what you had. And this gives a nice silhouette on the lights. So I'm just going to do another before and after where I just mass spam Control Z and then Control Y so you can see how it looks now compared to how it looked before. So this is before, and this is after. In fact, I can't tell for myself, so I'm going to screenshot it just so I can actually have a direct comparison, because the changes just over time don't work for me. Well, I think this is probably going to be it for the demonstration of what I do differently, because I think I've given you enough examples of what I think looks good, and just because I think it looks good doesn't necessarily mean it does. Like, I'm not the authority on the subject or anything like that. Far from it. I'm still very much learning. Yeah, I'm still very much learning at this. This isn't something I'm comfortable giving tutorials and stuff on, so I always feel like I'm coming across as a bit of a dick doing it. But I hope what I'm doing is helping and giving examples of how and where you can do different techniques actually does help progress and encourage, not discourage. Because the worst thing I can imagine is discouraging people when I'm trying to just give advice. This is the kind of lighting that I was talking about earlier, having one, 3 lights all the same distance, similar distances. Don't need that one. You probably could get away with not having that one. This one could be brought up to about halfway between what it was and what the middle one was. Increase the radius and keep it relatively low intensity. That's way too high. And just let the spotlight do its job. This is more about performance than anything else. I do still think it kind of looks a little bit better. These are probably too high intensity actually. The one was good. Oh, they're different colours. Oh, what? Why? Okay, this bit confuses me. Why would you have the blue from up top and then have orange down at the bottom when it's the blue lights that are lighting the room? So that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm genuinely curious. I think it was because you're thinking that these would be lighting the lower area. I view them more as detail lights to add like elements of detail to the room. So I don't view them as the thing that is lighting the room. I viewed these as being the things that are lighting the room. And I didn't touch all of them, that's why it looks weird. So 360, 32, 0, 1. But you can see that essentially all I'm doing is reducing the amount of lights, increasing the intensity, increasing the radius. Using spotlights for your detail instead of point lights, because they do a better job of it in my opinion. Like if you look at this wall how it was and look at this how I changed it, the light silhouettes look more realistic. And I wouldn't ever pin realism as the thing that you should be going for. I personally think that they should be exaggerated, but an exaggeration of realist, not an exaggeration of whatever the fuck the other side would be, the non-realist would be. These could probably be more intense. 360. Or is it not intense? Let's hang on. Could it be distance? Let's drop that down to 10. And increase the distance to 140. But yeah, I've demonstrated multiple different lighting things you can do. Play with shadows as much as you can. Anytime you see gratings that you're using, play with shadows on them. I think there was something over here that you already had the gratings in place. Oh, the fans. I haven't done fans yet. So these lights, make them hit the floor. 100% make them hit the floor. Like these should be like right fucking down. Oh, the reason for that is, as you can see, there's shadows on the floor now. Now, I personally wouldn't have any atmospheric density on them to start with. I would probably have them a little bit higher than that. Just, there we go. And now you can see the shadows stand out. All of these spin in game. So these shadows are going to be moving. And then increase the intensity. That's probably too bright. But then again, it might not be because this room is incredibly dark. If I essentially replicate the same thing. This is going to look weird to start with, and I think this is why Meth said in the video to stop a few of them from spinning, but you need like 860 with 0 atmospheric. But 0.01 for now, just so that I guarantee that they've all changed. And let's go for 30. I know this is extreme at the moment because it's now like insanely bright. But if we focus these a little bit more and then move them all up to match the same level as that. Maybe move this up a little bit as well. You can see that all of these would be spinning. That'd be kind of hectic. And then you increase the atmospheric density to like 0.05-ish. And then every single one of those spinning blades will cast spinning atmospheric lights. And rooms like Vent, I think ventilation, this room is a good room. Regardless of what people keep saying, regardless of the feedback of this room connecting too much and ventilation being too marine favoured. The reason it feels too marine favoured is because you can't play with darkness as the aliens, because the whole area is the same brightness. The whole room is exactly the same like level of intensity in the lights. The second you start adding more intense lights and darker lights and start playing with the contrasts, the room will actually balance itself out, I think. You've already got a decent amount of ceiling cover. You've got like actual full-on invulnerability spots in some places. You've got good height variation for the aliens to make use of. You've got flanking routes and all sorts. This room is fine. Maybe the rotation to it could potentially be slowed down to force Marines to have to take a longer route or something. Like maybe if you mirrored this door being on this side, so you close this and this off, meaning the Marines have to walk further to actually get into it. That would only add like half a second of rotation. But you could also potentially block this bit off more with this wall in both directions and have it so that you come down here, down on the side and round, which again would bring another half second for every single rotation. So every time people are rotating, it would take a full second longer to get around, because rather than going in a straight line across, I'm doing shit wrong, rather than going in a straight line across and then straight in, they instead have to come out, go round, go down, and then come round, and go in, and then round. Because at the minute, they can pretty much just follow a straight line, the line that I'm doing now, and they're there. But you force them to zigzag more, you force them to have to turn there, have to turn here, and then have to turn again. That'll slow them down, and you're not actually doing much to the rotations themselves. Like, you're just blocking paths slightly, and it would play the same, it'd play fine. If anything, it would actually make this room more of a bottleneck, so aliens would find it easier to defend. Because if two Marines are approaching, one from this side and one from that side, the aliens can't go in this side of the hallway, because Marines will just destroy them. I know this was supposed to be about lighting, but for some reason I just noticed this and thought I'd give feedback, because I didn't do this in the walk around with me and Meth. But yeah, if it was one door in the middle, the aliens can camp either side of the door. Whereas at the minute it's predictable, and if you've got 2 Marines, one coming from each direction, aliens here are dead. You might be lucky to get 1 Marine kill. Otherwise, you're going to die there. But yeah, I don't know how long this video is. It's probably too long, and it's probably dull and boring, and I'm not 100% sure how much information I've given you that will be useful, but hopefully it is. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. And yeah, let me know. Catch you later.